Some of the most interesting client conversations really start when we show them the shared trajectory rather than just the absolute number. So it's really important to have some toolkit for measuring the market and measuring you alongside with the market and with the competition, because it will be really helpful for you to demonstrate whether you not are underperforming or overperforming. Nevertheless, you are showing positive numbers in the reports.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Connected. Today, we're talking to Max Tesla from Blask, the one-stop shop for competitive intelligence in the iGaming industry. Really interesting product, really interesting founder. Max, great to have you on Connected. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Ashley. I'm glad to be here. Let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Max. I am a husband, CEO, and the second founder of Blask.com. And I've been in the software industry for about 12 years. I started in advertising technology, fintech, then spent times in senior positions at crypto and the company called Cryptex, which is the crypto mining platform for the B2C. So I've always been at that, intersection of data, technology, and markets. Blask, we started in 2022 together with my co-founder, Dima Bilyanin, and the thesis was simple that iGaming is a $100 billion industry that makes decisions like it's 2005, and we thought that that's a problem worth solving. And 3 years in, I think we were right. I'm based in Bangkok right now, and turns out building a data company in a city that looks like it was designed by someone who watched Blade Runner too many times, it's actually fine. Highly recommend it.
That's really interesting, and thanks for joining us from Bangkok. Now, listen, the product you have I think the value proposition is quite clear. When we talk with operators, of which we support many on our PAM platform, they're always interested in competitive intelligence, and there hasn't been reliable sources to get market data from in terms of benchmarking themselves against competitors, sizing up the market, understanding the quality of their acquisition sources. So I think you've definitely solved a problem for which there was a lot of demand. So let's talk a bit about what it is you do and how you've derived the data that you do in terms of reliability. How do you derive the market intelligence that you do that operators can rely on for making decisions in their business?
Yeah, that's a good one, Ashley. Right now, Blask is a market intelligence platform designed specifically for the iGaming. And currently, we track more than 5,000 brands across 126 countries, I guess, for today. And we measure something the industry didn't have before. It is a daily signal of where player attention is actually going. We have developed our own proprietary metric that we call the Blask Index. And the easiest analogy is that you can think of the Blask Index as a stock ticker, like the Dow Jones or the S&P for the iGaming brands. And it's measuring not revenue, not deposits. It is all about attention, who is gaining, who is losing, how fast. And on top of that, we have a games analytics layer that we did by literally scanning casino operator lobbies every single day using heavy computer vision. So you can see which games are present, where they sit in the lobby, and how they changes over day.
So how are operators using this data, this index?
In terms of operators, it's really, really simple, I think, because their question is always there's some version of where do they go next and how hard will it be when they get there. Let's take a look at Brazil, for example. I think Brazil is the clearest example of what looks like the very dynamic market after the regulation hit. Because when Brazil moved toward regulation, every major operator in the world had to make a decision fast. Commit capital, acquire a local brand, or just stay out. As you might heard, Flutter moved early and aggressively. They acquired something like a 56% stake in NSX Group, which operates Bet Nacional. month before the market officially opened on the January 1st last year. And that turned out to be the right call, because Flutter's Brazil business grew significantly through last year, while operators who waited faced a crowded, almost consolidating market. And I think that the difference between those decisions came down to just one thing. It's how much conviction did you have in demand signal before licenses dropped. That's precisely what Blask and Blask Index answer. It's not like, should we enter Brazil as a hypothetical, but like, here is the size of the audience. Here is which brands are already capturing attention. Here is how saturated the market is actually right now.
How frequently updated is the data? Is it daily update? Is it real time? How is it compiled? And then I'd be interested to know, how do you see operators, or take a step back for a second, who are the users of this data? I'm assuming it's operators, but maybe there's other stakeholders that are interested in, let's say, game vendors tracking where their titles sit versus competitors on operator landing pages or casino homepages. You mentioned about research insights that this provides for the industry that's tracking the success of companies. So I'd be interested to know who your customers are, and on a day-to-day basis, how are they using Blask?
Yeah, actually three main types of clients, each with a different question they need to be answered. Operators, I have already said about operators. Game providers, game studios. They spend years building a game. They negotiate distribution deals, integrate with platforms, run promotional campaigns at launch, and then they just go almost completely blind. The game is live, players are playing it, or they are not. But the provider has almost no visibility into what's happening inside operator lobbies across different markets. Like, is the game sitting in the top row?
It's too big a challenge to manage manually. To browse all the sites that are distributing your content on a daily basis is too big a manual job.
Yeah, it is. Actually, that's true. If the game's sitting on the top row of the front page in Germany, is it buried 3 scrolls deep in the UK on the operator number 5, while a competitor's title just taken the banner spot, like when they merchandise it, literally? We track that every day across thousands of operators' pages. For the UK, it's like 16K slot titles that we have discovered just yesterday. And also the Next.io collaboration we published last year in November showed exactly what this looks like in practice. Like what we did, that's a really brilliant job by the marketing team. They mapped 90 days of game visibility across Europe's top 5 markets, tracking how Halloween-themed titles spiked and collapsed, and which evergreen mechanics held position through the whole cycle regardless of seasonal noise. That's the kind of intelligence that really changes how a studio pitches its next title to a distributor. And I think it's how it should be made. I'll be happy sharing the link with you.
Oh, excellent. And that's what everybody wants, right? They want to take decisions based upon reliable intel, whether that's a game provider, an operator. So that's on the provider side, understanding the movement of games content and the seasonal featuring of games content. How about from an operator's perspective? I suppose it's benchmarking their position in your index against other operators in the markets they're in. You mentioned about evaluating a market prior to entry, but let's go to the day-to-day basis. This is a tool for marketing teams as well to understand the movements of their competitors. Talk to me about how it can be used inside of a business, an operator business, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, indeed. Let me just show you and demonstrate this on the screen. I have it right now. Let's open UK, for example. We have 333 brands tracked right now. We have the regulatory status. You can see whether betting and casino is regulated or not. You can see all of the all of the country data based on the population, society, economy, the GDP growth dynamics. Then you have the Blask index over here. It's like on the day-to-day, it says easy because like you can see the chart. The chart is quite a dumb thing without explanation. We do some data science on the back end here, and we have it just dissected into 3 components: the rise, the fall, and sometimes there is the flat We can see it in Kuwait, for example. I think yesterday I was observing Kuwait, and in Kuwait there was the flat thing here. I know, not here. Maybe another market. But let's go back to the UK. We have the flat. It's not as easily found here because market typically they rally, they're bullish, they're bearish. Right now we see in the UK that it's in the red zone. It is falling. It is like minus 16.23. But if we'll just click here, on the day-to-day basis, you can see the whys behind, like UKGC new bonus rules took effect on January with a 10x wagering cap and ban of mixed product incentives. You can see the event table of all of these drivers divided into 4 categories: regulatory, macroeconomics, casino-led, sports-led, all of this, and all of this seasonality that can show you like when to market, when to launch campaigns. And you can actually just go into the 1 week view with the hour over hour Blask index, and you can see the impact of the football match that happened recently, and see the share of every operator who is presented there changing over time, so you can react accordingly. It is the brand's accumulated power. It is the metric that is distilled from the share of search, and think of it as the user demand that we are tracking on the day over day, hour over hour, and month over month basis, depending on the size of the operator's footprint. If it's the operator that appeared a couple of weeks ago and we've spotted it, well, there won't be hour over hour data because it's just too young for have this data on the open sources on Google, for example. But if it's a well-established operator like the Bet365, we can go deep down into the hour over hour, and just if there is a Premier League match that's happening Saturday to Sunday, you can actually take a look what operators drove more user attention and capitalized more on the user attention in that specific market, like that level of detail. So Blask Index does not exist in vacuum, you know. It's the compound, just like the Dow Jones is nothing without the blue chips. The Dow Jones is a compound index. So that the Blask Index it's the sum of user interest across time for every single operator that we track on the market. So the market is represented.
And of the data points or operators that you're tracking in the Blask Index, can I filter the ones that are most interesting for me to track that I think are the companies I'm truly competing with, and filter out the ones that maybe are just noise?
Yeah, it's that easy. Actually, I really love this question, because if you are on the top 5, it's quite easy for you to understand who is in the top 5, or even who is the top 10, because everybody knows the top 10. But if we are speaking about Brazil, for example, I really love this market. Let's take a look at Brazil last year by month, and take a look at the top of the operators here. We can see Betano, the position number 1. Everybody is sorted descending by the brand's accumulated power, the BAP. But what about if you are number 83? If you are number 84, you can just pick your closest neighbors here and just scroll down to the chart, turn this down, and just see how you progress over those. And you can actually compare yourself being number 62 with the closest competitors you have. You can see games, you can see your ranking, you can see the change of the position in games. So it's exactly the thing we build this for, because if you're at position number 62, it is really hard to understand what metric you have to use to actually build this top list. But it's quite easily, and it's quite affordable for everybody to do this sorts of analytics just in a couple of clicks.
I'd like to dig a little bit deeper, though, on what do you think are the types of decisions that users of the Blask intelligence platform take as a result of the information derived from your platform?
Yeah, it can start that easy with just deciding what games to put in the lobby, and then let's just let's just fuel this up to the top-notch level of complexity investors and merchant acquisition teams, because everybody can be a Blask user and everybody will find this contribution or somehow. Just let me show you and demonstrate that diversity. Like, you are the CEO. I am the CEO. We know how to build business. And when it comes to negotiations and when the deal is on the table, the seller always has a revenue story. The question is whether the market supports it. Like Flutter, for example, buying Boyd's remaining 5% stake in FanDuel in July last year. Something like 1.76 billion US dollars implied a $31 billion valuation for FanDuel. That's like huge numbers, immense numbers. But every number in that conversation, the market size, the brand's position, the trajectory, it had to be stress tested against something external. That's what our competitive earnings baseline does, because we do mathematical modeling of the brand's potential in potential revenue we assume it should be generating over the market. It derives a revenue benchmark from market observable demand signals, and it's independent. What anyone tells you in the data room, in your data science department, it's, when the seller is claimed numbers that are 4 times the competitive earnings baseline you can observe through Blask, that gaps need explaining. It does not mean that they're lying, but it means you are just having the right conversation.
I like that you highlight that point, because it doesn't mean that they're lying, as you say, but it's another data point to give you the confidence or the curiosity to dig a little deeper on that point.
I think of it as of the question that no matter where you work, whether it's like the gambling operator or you are Procter & Gamble, we grew 15% last month. This like, wow, great. That sentence means almost nothing without context. Because if your market grew 30% in the same period, you just lost ground while putting up a number that looks like progress. It's green and you can show it to your investors, to the board. And we got the year-end report that we published somewhere, showing exactly that dynamic. Because some of the brands posted absolute growth while their share of total market attention contracted. Like they were being outspaced by the market they were supposedly thriving in. And the brands that caught this early changed their acquisition strategy. Like this really small puzzle. The ones that found out late, they were already behind. And I have 2 wonderful examples outside this industry that make it really simple to understand. First one is Tesla. Tesla delivered almost 2 million vehicles in 2023. It's a record. 38% year of year. Revenue grew. The press celebrated. And while Tesla was celebrating, the Chinese company called BYD, it's probably something like Build Your Dreams, it was growing at over 70%. They overtook Tesla in Q4 of that same year. And by full year, it's actually last year, 2025, BYD had officially unseated Tesla as the world's largest battery electric vehicle producer. Outstanding. But Tesla was not collapsing. The market was just accelerating past it. And there are lots of EVs here. I have a V here in Bangkok. It's quite convenient because you don't have to look for parking right now. Just you have like the EV reserved place. You charge and you just go to the mall. But yeah, well, literally in the inside, in numbers, in Tesla's own reports, nothing gave no warning that this was happening. And the second example is even
quite the
more
contrary. They were posting that there was growth.
Yeah, They were growing and losing at the same time. And the second example is even more interesting, even more structural. It's not even automotive. 2 years ago, the overall global CPG, you know what the CPG is? Consumer packaged goods, like the shampoo. Market grew 8%. The top 11 global CPG companies, like the Nestlé's and Unilevers of the world, averaged 4% of growth, like 8% market growth, 4% companies growth.
So newcomers entered the market and took market growth share away from those companies.
That's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Half the rate of the market they supposedly dominated.
Okay, so Max, this is making me think about a question that I'm often asked or wondering about, and we see this in newly regulated markets or even mature regulated markets like the UK. The distribution of share of market that goes to the offshore black market operators in those jurisdictions versus the locally regulated operators. Do you have any way of offering any insight into that or sizing up what share of the market falls to the regulated operators versus the remote operators that still service a locally regulated market?
Yeah, I can just show it.
Brazil is a great example.
Brazil, Brazil, I can actually just click this blue button, compare local to international. Local, it's onshore, brands that hold the local license issued by the local regulator. You can actually take a look here, like the number of license, expiration date, all of this we cross-validate with the real world facts. And you can actually take a look at the old time. That's quite a good, like you can see the time that regulation hit. Offshore collapsed. International collapsed here. Another thing quite interesting here is Germany. We'll see quite a different picture here because I love this analytics. 1 year to all time. Here we can see the local Blask index. Blask index is user interest. International offshore Blask index, also user interest, like the brands here, someone appearing here, someone holding steady, someone just declining a little bit. And then we can see that here, offshore is almost dominating here. We can see at some points, we can see the deviation range, whether we assume that offshore might be even bigger than the offshore part of the sector. And you can compare this brand by brand over here. You can see all of these operators.
And what is the date range where you're seeing that flipping of the offshore competitor or competitors taking market away from the locally regulated operators?
Here is April 2025. Then something started from April, then it declined back to the dominance of the local thing in terms of user interest from September, April to September. So it's quite an interesting thing because if we'll turn this off and if we'll switch to the monthly April, you said, yeah, April, what happened in April? In April, February, January, March, April, we can see the decline here, a huge decline, a falling trend. April 1st, 2025 to February 1st, 2026. Germany's iGaming attention declined due to front-loaded sports events and advertising frictions. You can actually see this market explanation thing, like the Federal Administrative Court ruling affected IP blocking capabilities, Google Ads policy, update affected gambling promotions, DFB, Pokal. Final in Berlin stood betting interest, like macroeconomics, regulator. You can see all of these drivers here, like
That's really interesting. This is a topic in every regulated market, and a conversation that those that have licenses are constantly having with the regulator is not just the policing of their businesses' adherence to the regulation, but what is being done to protect the market that they've invested in servicing.
Sure, just take a look at Brazil. They almost eliminated demand to the offshore here because they are quite young in building this. They learned a lot from Europe. They learned a lot from like real studies based on other countries doing regulation, and they just did it really great. They protect the players. I had a really wonderful interview with Ricardo Rosada, the one who really understands the market much better than me on my Signal and Noise episode. But the thing is, they did it really effectively, and what I think regulators need is just analytical muscle, data muscle, to understand that the market is really dynamic and it's all about people demand. If you ban illegal operators, you cannot ban people. The different picture is in Japan. They actually arrest players. I'm not sure it's a good thing, but somehow it is working there. But it's
Well, I guess,
really mysterious
Max,
market for me right now.
I think these are questions and challenges that neither you nor I are going to solve. But I think what's interesting about what Blask is doing is it's providing a lens, a measure of what's going on, a view in to the impact, and maybe support some of the decision making around that through having better market intelligence.
Exactly.
Let's shift gears for a second, Max. I'd like to challenge you a bit. You look at your metrics all day long, I imagine. You produce in partnership with Next. You're producing some statistical data that supports some of their research and their publication. Let's talk about trends. What does your analysis of the market tell you, and what are you seeing happening, and where is the opportunities and where are the threats?
Well, three that I think are genuinely underappreciated right now.
Let's go.
The US is
Okay.
the market the industry underestimates consistently. And we just released our US report, and our chairman and advisor, Jeffrey Haas, with our CPO, Ilya, are right now in New York on Next IO Summit with that presentation. And we released the report they presented there with a headline that 79.8 billion of CEB for last year, all tracked brands, the total market. And that's 7 times the UK, 7 times the American. It is. And the American Gaming Association just reported 78.7 billions in total commercial gaming revenue, growing 9.2%. It's like the 6th consecutive year of record revenue. And the interesting part isn't the size. It is the structural shift that is happening inside, because 77% of the market is still offshore brands.
So let's go back. You just put me onto a thought here. Go back to what you were saying about is growth of a specific operator outpaced by the growth of the market. So in the U.S., we've seen prediction markets as a product emerge. Is that expanding the U.S. market, or is that to what extent is it cannibalizing sports betting revenue?
Those are completely a new category. It's not a trend. It's not a replacer. What I think is, what I know from our data is that prediction markets grew like almost 300-ish% last year, January to December. And that is not a rounding error. Kalshi, those reported weekly trading volumes surpassing $1 billion in December. Like that's crazy. Kalshi and Polymarket together hit nearly 10 bill in November trading volumes alone. And Kalshi just doubled its valuation to 11 bill. They raised $1 more billion in a new funding, and DraftKings and FanDuel both launched prediction markets products like in the late 2025. This is a category that is being born in real time, and every operator with a sportsbook definitely need to have a serious position on what it means for their product.
Are you able to get a sense for where prediction markets have had an impact in a market? Is it also growing the market? Is it bringing in a new type of player, or is it cannibalizing the existing market and just taking market share away from what was previously sports betting activity?
I think it is different, and I think it is something like the breath of a fresh air for the industry, because it expands the things you can bet on.
Okay, and then that was one of three. Give me number 2 of your insights.
Yeah, Africa, the fastest growing continent, and I think the industry is not paying enough attention.
In what sense?
I read the report from PricewaterhouseCoopers, and their data puts South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya alone at $600 million in gaming revenue 2 years ago. And that's growing really fast because what I see, we have the measurement of the Blask index month over month and year over year. Nigeria, it is 34% year over year growth in user demand. Congo, 66%. Cameroon, 67%. And the recent external analysis we made cited Nigeria's CEB, like the overall expected GGR from the market, we assume, with a 61% year-over-year growth. It's like the structural demand expansion. It's not seasonal thing. Africa is really growing fast.
And what are you seeing in terms of competitor movements in those markets? Are new companies entering the market that are helping increase the market interest with new product approach, perhaps? Or is it just organic growth in the market benefiting the same incumbent players?
I think both, because the penetration of mobile internet and technology, the overall growth of economics, a new entrance, yeah, for sure. It's quite a prospering terrain for building a new brand right now. I think it's a really, really interesting thing that you have to bet on.
Okay, let's go to insight number 3.
Big brands means healthy brands. A brand can be number one in the market in absolute terms, and it can be in structural decline. That's what I was saying, because if the market grew 30% and you grew 10%, your brand's accumulated power, your relative market share fell. And that's a significant strategic problems that looks fine in any report that only tracks absolute numbers. And some of the most interesting client conversations really start when we show them the share trajectory rather than just the absolute number. So it's really important to have some toolkit for measuring the market and measuring you alongside with the market and with the competition, because it will be really helpful for you to demonstrate whether you not are underperforming or overperforming. Nevertheless, you are showing positive numbers in the reports.
And if you were to take the insights you've been talking about and what you see and draw a line out for the next 12 months, what do you think are the key trends that operators or stakeholders in the industry, whether those are investors or B2B suppliers, what do you think we should be paying attention to?
AI agents, first of all. Those will change how intelligence gets consumed everywhere. And the shift coming in iGaming in just the same one that's hitting every other data-intensive industry. It's everywhere. It's an analyst, dashboards, reports, copywriting, and we can actually do the transition from the analyst reads dashboards and writes reports to the swarm of agent that is monitoring everything continuously, flagging what matters and just pushing it directly to proper stakeholders. And I think that it's a really, really important thing right now. Second is prediction markets. I really love prediction markets, and I think that prediction markets will force a product category rethink globally, industry-wide and worldwide. Kalshi trading volume surpassed $1 billion per week. That's crazy. $1 billion. TKFD launched prediction market products, and those platforms operate under CFTC regulation as derivatives exchanges. So it's way different layer. And there are now 20 plus state lawsuits against Kalshi. And this is heading to the Supreme Court. That's quite an interesting thing to look at. And the last one, I think, not the last one, probably, there is one more. The UAE, Emirates, we have to pay attention. It is becoming a real market right now. The brand called Play 971, I guess. Play 971, yeah. They just launched as the first licensed iGaming operator. And, you know, the new civil code coming in force in June, and they remove gambling from general civil law and hands everything to the hands of GCGRA, the regulator actually. That's a market that could move really fast because it's a highly ARPU country, zero license competition until now. And I really look at that market. And the last one, I think the US state by state land grab has a closing window, because commercial revenue hit its numbers like 78 billion, something like this, last year, 6th consecutive record year, and regulated iGaming crossed over $1 trillion in cumulative revenue. But online casino is still only legal in 7 states. It's Michigan, it's New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and 4 others make up like 80% of that 1 trillion, like Pareto perfect thing. And Maine has already moved. Virginia and New York are in progress. And once domestic brands hit 70% plus of a state market, as they have in New Jersey, for example, offshore share does not recover. The operators who are not in the US, yet they are making a timing mistake. They will feel for a decade.
It's headwinds.
Yeah, exactly.
Max, been really interesting talking with you. And if you'd be interested, I'd like to have you on again to look at, periodically what your information is telling you. Your insights are very valuable. I think you've got a unique perspective, but not so unique as only available to you. Your product is available to customers that license access to your data. How does that work? Just in closing, if someone wants to access the insights available through Blask, what does that look like for an operator or a stakeholder?
It's that easy. You just go to blask.com and you just click talk to sales, and we'll get in touch within 30 minutes. So it's that easy. We can do a demo and everybody is welcome. We have lots and lots of operators on board, lots and lots of suppliers, hedge funds who are interested in the gaming. So data is accessible, data is real time, and it's worth for 1 year less than just one night in Las Vegas. So I'll be happy to just do a personal demo to
I think
anybody
one
interested.
night in Las Vegas has got a very wide range of what that could cost, depending upon what you get up to and who you're with.
We also have the pay as you go thing. So you can just start really small with something like $300, $400 per month for the tier 3 geo, and then just grow really big if you are entering new markets, for example, or are interested in wider analytics. So it's just this thing in terms of the subscriptions product. We have the app, the Blask app. We are also finishing the API, so we are able to connect all of the data we have to your data powerhouse, and just you can do everything in Python.
So I could merge your data inside of my business-specific data and see benchmark data against what I'm seeing in a particular market.
Yeah, and
really good,
last
really good
but not
idea.
the least is that it's not just about the product. I think that we built a really brilliant team of talented people, talented engineers behind. And if there are any bespoke projects that involve artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, data scraping, well, it's negotiable.
Very interesting. No doubt a talented team. Max, thank you so much for joining me today on Connected. Pleasure talking with you. And we'll see you again soon. Thank you for watching Connected.
Cheers.